This is Orion, and today I'm gonna be telling you about casting. So right now I just opened Google Colab and our to-do list for today, and we're going to be doing type conversion and just a really hard question for you guys that I will explain later in the next video, which is coming Saturday. So I opened Google Collaboratory and obviously I want to make a new notebook. So I'm gonna go to File, New Notebook, and it automatically opens for me. Then what I do is if I want dark mode, I go to Settings, Dark, and save it. And now it becomes dark. So we learned in the past two tutorials about what data types there are and input and output, and we're going to be using those together to just learn a basic concept of type conversion. Now, what is type conversion? We learned that there is a string value, which is a str. Well, I usually call it a string, a int, which is an integer, a whole number. You have a float, a whole number with a decimal. We have also a complex number, something that is computationally more than a binomial, more than one term. So we learned that in input and output I could say any identifier, and that is equal to the input function, which is stored in this identifier. I know I spelled that wrong. And I have to write in here, what is your age? And it says, what is your age? And I could write anything, a string value. This is obviously stored as a string value. But even if I store it as a number, it's still going to be used as a string value. And there's going to be a specific error that comes along when we're going to use this later. We're going to say B, or like any, we could say the answer is equal to identifier times, we learned about operators. There's a plus, there's a minus, there's a multiplication sign, there's a division sign, and there's a module sign. But we're going to be using any sign we want. So we'll just say identifier plus 5. And we saw this in the last episode, and I'm going to explain this in a better manner. So if I print answer, there will be an error. And what is the error? It says must be a string value, cannot be an integer value, because the operations I'm going to be doing cannot be on a string value. I cannot multiply, add, or subtract on a string value. So I explained to you that we could use the int cast, which means everything in these brackets has to result to a number that is an integer value. And this improves our situation, because if I write 3, then it prints 8. This is satisfactory for us. And we could do many things with this, such as identifier equals int input, what is your age? But what if I want to store it as a float value? That is very easy, float. And if I write this, I'm going to write 3. It's going to write 8.0. Why? Because it's a float value, and I'm going to add 5 to it. That's good. Now let's see what happens when we write complex. It's going to say 8 plus 0j, because these are a binomial. Because complex is usually defined as more than a monomial, more than one term. So it's going to say 8 plus 0j, and 0 times anything is going to be 0. So the final answer is 8. So we go here and we have completed type conversion. Now let's get to the really hard question that's very important for us to do. So my question is going to be, I must write something I must get an input from the user, and I must store it as a string value, must, and then I'll get another identifier, I'll multiply it by 3, and I want to print the answer. How am I going to do that? I encourage you to just pause the video and try this for yourselves. Okay, so if you're done, this question, you could probably say this is the same as the last one, but this actually brings out some actual answers out of you. You could write any identifier. I could write D is equal to, let's say, I want to store it as a string value. Remember I said that. So I say string value, I'll cast it, and I'll write input, and then I'll write what is your age. And remember guys, you gotta add a colon. So I can write 30, and it's gonna write, and I would want an integer value. So I'm gonna write another identifier and my favorite letter, which is A, and I'm gonna cast D. How? I'm gonna use the integer, and then I'm gonna write D. Now what happens? So if I write 3, nothing will happen. So the syntax, this way that we prove to the compiler is that we want an integer cast on this variable, and we would want to print a. So I could do this, and 30 would be printed out. But how do I know that this is running? I could just write a simple thing by another print function and say this is now an integer value. Pretty simple, right? Let's just see it. This is now an integer value. Thank you for this tutorial. I am Orion, and on our next episode we're going to be learning about if and else statements. I encourage you to first look at them, research about them, and then come to my video to learn about them.